Hello, and welcome to Sideways. Have you ever done anything that... Sorry, the dog's jumping at me. Have you ever done anything that you feel bad about afterwards and then found it difficult to shake off the disappointment in yourself or the bad feeling? That's what we're talking about this week. We're talking about regret, whether it's inevitable that we all carry regret. And if we do, what can we do about it? We also cover favourite sandwiches, selling off your football medals, Frank Sinatra, and we both speak French. Regrets. Go on, you two idiots.
There we are. Good evening.
Did you take long enough to come online there? Are you putting some new coal in your bloody laptop or something?
I don't know. It just seemed to take a long time to connect. The whole world's gone mad, isn't it, with WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram all being down.
Yeah, that's good though. Yeah, apart from WhatsApp, which is a bit of a nuisance, I'm not really bothered about Facebook and Instagram being down.
No,
just means I can't look at pictures of other people's food.
which makes sort of 90% of the posts that are on those particular platforms, doesn't it?
Well, certainly 90% of the posts that I look at, certainly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you're interested in food anyway, so I imagine the algorithms would direct all sorts of food-related stuff to your feed.
Yeah, I feel sometimes bitter about the algorithms.
Yeah, nothing you can do about them though, is there? Apart from not engage with the platform so much.
No, but if you think about the whole sort of thing about an algorithm, that it pushes towards you things that it thinks you're going to like. How do we ever broaden our horizons?
Oh no, quite no. I think they're pretty dreadful. Especially as I still get ones for alcohol coming up quite a lot, so it just seems a bit bizarre.
Well, in fairness, you are interested in alcohol.
Well, that's it. But I'm getting constant trigger posts flying across my screen. So, what I want to talk to you about this week.
Yes.
Is regrets.
Have you had a few? But
then again, I'll come on to that in a minute. Yeah.
Oh, really? We're going to talk Sinatra, are we?
Very briefly in my notes. But this is an idea that you floated recently, didn't you? And although we've touched on it in various episodes in a number of guises over the last, we're coming up to 2 years, aren't we, of doing this?
Yeah.
During that time, we haven't actually dedicated a whole episode to it. So here we are.
Yeah, it struck me the other day that when I come up with ideas and send you suggestions for episodes, I should really write down what gave me the idea, because when it actually comes to recording it, I've got absolutely no idea why I suggested it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I think we should better drag something out of the mire on this one.
Give it a go, shall we?
I'm hoping so, but just before we start, really just talking about, or very briefly mentioning Roger Hunt, who sadly passed away this week, who one of our 1966 World Cup winning team, and there's only leaves 3 of the original starting 11 left now.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like Dad's Army, isn't it? There's only Ian Lavender left now, I think.
Do you know the 3 are in the World Cup winning squad that are left?
Okay, let me have a go. I don't think I do really. Bobby Charlton.
Bobby Charlton, yeah, but he's recently been diagnosed with dementia.
Jeffrey Hurst.
Sir Jeff Hurst is still there.
Hurst. And is Martin Peters dead?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Recently.
So the last one must be. Is it an obvious one?
No, it's one of the more obscure players in the team that keeps his head down really, and it has done so ever since the.
No, go on. Who is it?
Is that George Cohen?
Oh yeah, it's George Cohen, isn't it? Didn't he sell his medals when he hit upon hard times?
I don't know. That sounds about right, actually. I know that his nephew Ben played for England in the 2003 Rugby World Cup final.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a coup for the Cohen family.
Have you ever been tempted to sell your medals from football?
I've got a few, but I don't think they're going to fetch much. I think the base metal on them isn't of any value, and certainly I haven't hit any heights that would consider them collectible.
Which is the medal you're proudest of?
Oh, I don't know. I think, do you know what? I'd go back right to some of the early ones I won playing for the Scouts team, the Scouts five-a-side team, where we won. We had a very strong team one year and won several tournaments, including the one which covered the whole of Kent. After
you'd succeeded in that tournament, did you go nude swimming at Buckmore Park by way of celebration?
We didn't. No, did draw a discreet veil over that. No, we didn't. No, I just caught the bus home. I was a bit like the 1966 World Cup winning team when a couple of those hopped on the underground or jumped on a bus and went back home to their folks' house.
Yeah, that's about where the similarity ends, though.
Yeah. Anyway, regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an old Yiddish proverb that says, "Man is not old until his regrets take the place of his dreams."
That's quite depressing, isn't it?
It is really, but I was trying to think when, obviously because you have dreams all the time during your youth, don't you? And you tend to, there's always something, I think, that keeps you going. There's always some sort of goal and some sort of dreams, or some sort of dream. But I think naturally you'll get to a point, won't you, when the longer you live, the more chances you have of having made mistakes, which can lead to regrets.
I think that quote is a bit, or that saying, or whatever it is.
Proverb.
It's a very negative sort of way of looking at the world, isn't it? I don't really see any reason why you should ever reach the point in your life where your dreams have run out. Surely you can always have things that you aspire to, no matter how old you are. Even if you're overcooking your vegetables at 95 in an old people's home, you might aspire to finish the Sudoku.
Well, that's right, but it's looking at it as I think it's quite positive quite really. It gets to, you can be quite elderly before your regrets do overtake your over your dreams, because as I say, you always tend to have some sort of dream going on. So I think it means that you never really grow old. So I think it's quite a positive proverb. But, take it as you will, interpret it as you will.
I'm going to. I think if you are weighed down by regrets, then that in itself is a bit of a problem. It kind of says that the regret that you have probably holds too much weight in your life.
Yeah, probably. We just define. Shall we define regrets first before we go? I'd like to have a little bit of a definition.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward, really, isn't it?
Probably. Go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's when I looked it up, it said it's that the definition of regrets is that it's a feeling of sadness, repentance, or disappointment over an occurrence or something that you have done or failed to do. It's a big issue for us addicts, really, where we have and I know it may be for everyone, but certainly it comes up often in groups where we talk about having this sort of washing machine head, where. Where you've sort of, and I think I remember that distinctly, that feeling when you're just going into recovery and you've spent so many years anaesthetizing yourself from any sort of emotion or thought process, that once you open those floodgates and you go into sobriety, you get this almost like a brain rush, and it's quite frightening and quite scary. And so you do get this washing machine head, and all sorts of thoughts are going over. Then I know someone, I think we've used the phrase before. I remember one of the guys that comes to that's been in the groups over the years. He describes it as having shit FM playing constantly in your head, which I think is quite. You can imagine that, and I remember that laying awake at night, and you can't turn your brain off. And gradually, it did settle down, but I remember that it was horrible. And those sort of regrets that often crop up during that period when you're. When you've got this turmoil going on, it can really talk to you and lead you back to relapse. So it's quite an important issue for us addicts, how to deal with those regrets.
Yeah, I suppose when you're in active addiction, you're drinking partly to keep the regrets at bay, aren't you? So that you don't have to think about them. And the more you're drinking, the more regrets you're building, but you're not having to face them. And then, so I suppose, not unlike any other emotion, but it probably is one of the most powerful emotions to hit you when you go into recovery, because as things become clearer and you're forced to kind of stand and face your past, regret must feel pretty weighty, I would imagine, for a lot of you.
It is, and it's a quite a painful process, and which is one of the reasons why a lot of people dash back to their drug of choice, because the feeling is that uncomfortable. But as you get on further down the line in recovery, the next regret you have is that you didn't do it sooner. So that's quite a positive regret, really, I suppose, in many ways, as opposed to the ones where you're beating yourself up constantly for what's happened in the past, the way you behaved, and decisions you've made that are wrong. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, what do you do with that regret, that particular regret? Because it's an interesting regret to have. I wish I'd done it sooner. And obviously, it's not a regret that only exists in the context of recovery from addiction. A lot of people feel like that. A lot of people will say, I wish I'd, I don't know, come into therapy sooner, or whatever it might be. But what do you, as a recovering addict, what do you do with that particular regret? How do you deal with it?
I tend to do where you acknowledge it, but then I pass it on almost. In groups, we talk about it, especially when I use it as a way of encouraging some of the younger folk that come into the groups. I'm in awe of them when they're coming in, they're in their 20s. And I always say, I wish I'd done it sooner, and try and to use that as a way to encourage them to crack on with their recovery, even though they're at quite a tender age. So, the regret that you didn't do it sooner, that you're never going to be able to do anything about it, really. So it's not a strong regret. It's a regret of clarity that comes in further on down the line.
Yeah, I only asked the question because I know this is a topic that we've touched on before, and I wonder if when you're feeling that sort of regret, whether there's a realization that actually you're better off focusing on the other bit of the equation, which is that you've done it now.
Yes, very much. I think it is, again, it's a bit of an old phrase that's in the recovery community, but you come into recovery when the time is right. So you can't really regret not getting early, because the time wasn't right there. Yeah. But I suppose the regret is that the timing wasn't in place earlier.
That's right. You weren't ready to change, though, were you? So even if you had gone into recovery early, you probably have relapsed.
Yeah, well, exactly. So the timing's right. So, but everyone has little regrets all the time, don't you? I mean, you can be sitting on your sofa and maybe you eat a whole bar of chocky. Or something like that, and you start feeling sick. I know that I used to do it. I don't do it so much now, but I can, I've done that, and you regret the feeling. Or you can end up watching. Sometimes you sit up and watching maybe some YouTube videos or whatever, and then suddenly you realise that it's way past the time you really should have gone to bed, and you feel tired the next day. And although you've got regrets about that, it's something you can often repeat. And I think that. That's something also I want to come on to later on in my notes, is that some regrets are not always just one-off. Sometimes it is a repeated set of circumstances that come on. You regret not having the or falling into your old self-sabotaging ways. But I'll come on to that in a minute, if I may. There's some other bits I just wanted to talk about. I mean, one of the regrets that I think all of us have, which is quite strange, really, but you get that. You have a conversation with someone, maybe an argument, and then you walk away, and then sometime later on down the line, you suddenly come up with a sort of perfect quip or a comeback, and you regret not having that thought at the time. I think we can all relate to that, can't we? And it came up when I was looking at the notes on regrets, and in fact, there is that particular set of circumstances. There's a name for that phenomenon. And it's we haven't got a phrase for it in English, but in French it's called l'esprit de l'escalier, nice. which is straight the spirit of the staircase, which is a little bit weird. I don't know how that directly relates to coming up with a perfect quip later on down the line, unless you've got an interpretation of that.
Spirit of the Staircase, isn't that a Rush track?
I think it's a Spirit of Radio.
Oh yeah, I knew it was something like that. I suppose the only thing I can think of in terms of it being the spirit of the staircase is, you want to go back down the staircase or back up the stairs to put right what you feel like you didn't put right previously.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. It is. It is. It's a nice phrase, but I couldn't see it related particularly to that phenomenon. But there we go. We haven't got a phrase for it in English, so we'll nick it from the French, even though it makes very little sense.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the thing that kind of joins all of these examples together is, I can't remember what point you were making before that. What were you talking about before that? Where you said you wanted to come back to it later, and
just really
you warned me off going down that particular rabbit hole.
I was going to talk about how sometimes regrets are not just a one-off incident. We regret going back to our old self-sabotaging ways. Right.
So, if I may just make a point on that,
I might want to warn you off again until I get to the proper place in mind.
you might do, but then when you come to the proper place in your notes, I just won't make any comment. Right?
I won't make any comment, that which would come across quite boring, wouldn't it?
But I don't want to forget the point that I was going to make.
No, you crack on with it, because I can feed it in.
Yeah, I know how flexible you are. Exactly. The thing is, if you find yourself making the same or doing the same things that give you the same regret time and time again, you're not really using regret properly, are you? The only purpose of regret is as a learning experience. So if you carry regret in and of itself, it is of no use to you. The only use that regret has is that it reminds you that you're human, fallible, you will make mistakes, and it gives you the opportunity to avoid making them in the future. So if you find yourself constantly regretting the same things, you're an idiot.
Yeah, it's strange, because it just reminded me really about, I think a lot of people use the phrase, and I'm sure I did in the early days, you may well have done too, is that you're waking up with a stinking hangover, and you're regretting drinking too much the night before, and you say, I'm never going to drink again. And that's, and you probably will. And I definitely did. It wasn't, it's sometimes best, I think, just to, I don't know how you feel about it, but to reject that feeling of never, because you probably will make mistakes again. And then just start to, to think differently about it and have strategies to improve your habits.
I would suggest to you that when you wake up with a stinking hangover, what you're feeling is not regret. What actually you're feeling is, I wish I didn't have a hangover.
Yeah.
You don't regret going out and, let's consider the population that go out and have a night out, have a terrible hangover, but don't have a dependency.
Yeah.
People like that, they don't regret going out and getting drunk. No. They just don't want to feel bad the day after. So I think there's a distinction to be made here between what we might term regret and what is actually a regret. So for instance, going back to that previous point that you made, if you have a tendency to say things to someone you love that hurts them, and you say, oh, God, I really regret saying that. When I get angry, I say things I don't mean and I lash out and I really regret it. And then you keep doing that. That is a regret you're not learning from, because you keep finding yourself in the same painful situation, inflicting pain upon yourself, pain upon someone you love, and you're not learning from it. And so I know I sort of glibly said you're an idiot if you do that. But the point there is, you have to look at that and say, why do I keep doing that then? What is it that I'm not understanding about myself or this situation that is causing me to do something so destructive time and time again? Because that is an example of regret that you're not learning from.
It is, and you can draw the parallels there, can't you, with the destructive behaviour of an addict.
Exactly.
And we know it's wrong. It's causing pain, it's causing misery, not just to yourself, but everyone around you, but you keep going back to and making exactly that same mistake. Obviously, there's a compulsive element to it in this case.
The classic regret for an addict is lapsing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah, and that's which makes it quite difficult condition to deal with when you trip up.
Yeah.
Because you regret having to tell everyone as well. You've put yourself in that position.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's one of the things that's important about regret. If you are in recovery and you lapse, the thing that, I mean, you know this, and I'm sure you talk about this in group all the time, but all the energy that you then expend beating yourself up for your lapse is a waste.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
That's a way of regretting something or using regret, which is wholly destructive. You're much better to say, okay, this is a reminder to me that my recovery perhaps is not as solid as I thought it was. And I have to, take different measures or do different things to try and make sure it's more solid in the future. That would be an example of you using a regret positively, I think.
Yeah, which is when I come on to the last part of my notes in a moment about when I looked up the tips for overcoming regrets, and it touches on that, so we'll cover that as well. But I mean, if someone says they have had no regrets, you may find someone that is perhaps retiring from, I don't know, from football, for example, or retiring from something that said, I've had no regrets. I always find that really difficult to believe that someone's had no regrets. It's such a common emotion, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think, I don't know what people mean when they say they've got no regrets. I think it's useful to regard your regrets in such a way that you say you're not going to carry them. But I think anybody who says I've never regretted anything, which is slightly different, I know, is probably being a bit disingenuous. I don't know how you can go through life without doing anything that you feel regretful about.
No, I don't. Unless they've got some sort of superpower where they can just wipe that, erase it from the memory and move on and don't regret anything they've done. But that seems to me would be quite an uncaring person, because I'm sure that they would have made mistakes and they would have hurt people along the way or said and done the wrong thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's not very good. But I mean, regrets, because they can be real painful burdens, can't they? If we allow them to sit upon us and weight us down, because obviously they upset your current happiness, can't they? Your past regrets, or the regrets about things about in the past, are interfering with today. And so I looked at the research revolved around, look, how do we deal with that? And I had to draw it from several different places, really, because there didn't seem to be consistency. But I've sort of come up with a bit of a bullet point list I just wanted to go through with you.
Nice.
If you don't mind that. I mean, because it says that these regrets, they can eat us up. They can stop us moving forward. And I think that's where get that point of those regrets keeping us stuck, I think again seems to sort of weave its way through these tips that I'm just going to come on to.
Okay.
And often, regrets about what you have done and what you've said and how you've hurt someone. The other side of that also is that regrets about missed opportunities or things we haven't done rather than things we have. I think they can be just as powerful, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I think we can probably all think back and look at potential opportunities that we let pass us by, and you can regret that. But again, I was when I was writing these notes, I was doing a bit of self-analysis on that, and I was thinking, what do I regret? And I was thinking about perhaps some of the opportunities that I'd missed, but I don't know if I had taken up those opportunities, where it would have led anyways. There's no way of really seeing some of those regrets of missed opportunities through to their conclusion because I haven't lived it.
Yeah, I think you're more likely to experience regret over missed opportunity if you don't feel happy with your life today.
Yeah, true.
So if I think of, when I think of that, I haven't really thought about this, but if I think of that, I tend to think of professional opportunities.
Well, it's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I can remember once I was, there appeared to be a chance for me to go and live in another country and work in another country when I was still in the corporate world, which I didn't take. And I think if I now found myself in a position in my life where I felt unhappy and dissatisfied and unfulfilled, it would be much easier for me to look back on that and say, oh, if only I'd done that, I could have changed my life and everything would have been different. but I feel okay, so I don't need to carry that regret. So I think if you do look back at missed opportunities and feel the weight of the regret, you're probably better off looking at how things are for you now rather than worrying about the things you missed in the past.
That's quite a good point, really, because if you feel you're in a bit of a shitty position now, those regrets are going to take a much higher importance in your life, aren't they? Or they're going to appear as a much more a major decision. Whereas you look back now and you think, well, I'm quite happy where I am at the moment. So they become less significant.
Yeah, if you're not happy now, it'll be easier for you to assume that had you done something different in the past, you would have been happy now. Yeah,
which leads on quite nicely onto when I was looking up these ways of dealing with this regret. It did. It did. One of them was that where you write. We've used gratitude lists and that sort of thing, but then again, it's talking about writing down these regrets and then go through your list and change why didn't I do that, or why did I do this? Change those questions into what's next, which is pretty much what we're talking about there, really. Mm-hmm. Because it'll overcome that feeling you get of feeling stuck, or that regrets stopping you from moving on.
Yeah.
Because again, if you're looking at that opportunity you talked about there, which whether you see it as missed or one that you just pushed to one side, what came next is where you are now, and so it becomes less of an issue, doesn't it?
Yeah. I've not heard that suggestion, but yeah, I can see that would have its merits. I think it feels to me as if it would be more useful if you really do feel as if you're stuck in the past.
Yeah.
I think the danger of doing it otherwise is that you might sort of stir up a load of emotions that you have actually dealt with. So, I think I could understand the merit in that, but I think you'd probably have to be a little bit careful about, using it sparingly.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Another thing that comes up, which we touched on, I think we touched on it last week, was the use of CBT, where that can help to reduce and replace your feelings of regret and anxiety. And instead of sort of telling yourself to stop thinking about the past, it helps you to deal with regret in a better way. So again, is rationalising regret.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one of the kind of key principles of CBT is to address dysfunctional or faulty thinking, and by definition, life can only be lived in the now. So a lot of the focus is on how do you change your thinking now to make sure that you can live a fulfilling and enjoyable life. And so in that regard, that would help you to move past things that you can't do anything about, which is stuff that has already gone.
Yeah. And the next point, again, leads on quite nicely, really, that you touched upon, is about learning your lesson. Yeah. And, the regrets can be a really an important learning tool for the future. So see them as a positive. Don't see them as something that's going to weigh you down. See it as a part of the process of learning how to not make the same mistakes going forward, but how to live a more balanced and fruitful life. Yeah,
absolutely. When you make a mistake and you regret it, you're just reminding yourself that you're human.
Yeah.
And if you can use that as an opportunity to do something different in the future, then that regret hasn't been wasted, has it? And even better, there's no need to carry it.
That's it. I mean, that leads on quite nicely as to how you control, have a think about and to try and control how regrets influence your future. You can't change what's happened in the past, but you can choose how those past events affect your future and how your thinking going forward. Well, what about this next point, which is I relate to it totally, is about turning regret into gratitude. So, for example, for me, I regret that I drank so excessively, but I'm really grateful for recovery.
I know people who haven't kind of suffered significant mental illness or are not in recovery will probably find this one a hard one to swallow. But I've often said to people that the 5 weeks I spent in a psychiatric unit was probably the most valuable experience of my life. It changed everything for me. Not only it wasn't just that 5 weeks. I mean, it was, all the kind of years of therapy leading up to it and after it. but it changed everything about the way that I saw myself and the way that I saw the world, and therefore the way that I kind of behave in it. So, yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. That's actually...
So you went through a similar path.
That's unusually insightful for you.
Oh, no, well, I've only plagiarised it from...
Oh, that's all right then. I thought you'd had an original thought for a minute.
Well, steady. Although, again, I think I will use that and say, look, I'll tell you what I think. I've just thought of this, and away I go.
That's lovely. I like that. That's very good. Yeah. So I'm going to put on my gratitude list now, mental illness.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, so I should have used that as a segue. I missed a trick there because I could have put this at my last of my points, my bullet points. Yeah, I didn't think it through, did I?
No.
Because the next point is talking about practicing self-forgiveness, which again is something that always comes up in groups and something we talk about, because it's by doing that, I mean it's a real tough one, isn't it, to forgive yourself for things. But when you do start to do that, it reduces those feelings, those regrets. They take a reduced in their significance, or I found it did for me.
I think self-forgiveness is only difficult if you struggle with the definition of forgiveness. If your definition of forgiveness is such that you think forgiving myself means everything was okay and I don't have to, feel sad or sorry about things that I've done, then I can understand why you'd find forgiveness difficult. But actually if you see self-forgiveness as something that says the way I've behaved wasn't okay, but I'm not going to let it weigh me or anybody else down for the rest of my life, I'm going to take the opportunity to live the best life I can possibly live now, then I think that then starts to make self-forgiveness easier. Yeah,
it does. I mean, you're not really removing the regrets. I mean, you're sort of owning up to your mistakes, aren't you? And that allows you to move on, so you don't feel stuck once you've acknowledged it.
Yeah,
and dealt with it that way, and then moving on. The last couple of points really is, well, I'll scratch the last one, which was to seek out support groups or a counsellor in order for you to discover how you can get relief from regret. So that covers us too, there, doesn't it? Support group, be involved in the support groups, and you being a counsellor. So,
well, I think that yes. I think the important thing there is whether you go to a peer support group or whether you go into therapy, talk to people about your regrets. It doesn't have to be a support group or a therapist, but the benefit of you talking about your regrets, firstly, is that you help other people, perhaps, to avoid mistakes that you've made, but also you start to feel less shame about the things that you've done. If you're open enough and willing to say, look, I have made mistakes in the past, these are some of the things that I've done, then I think you probably will find that you'll help your own recovery. You can do a kind of DIY instead if you want.
You can, but if we do talk to people, they'll feel quite grateful that they've made the step forward to.
Your last segue was better. I've got to be honest.
Poor attempt, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a desperate attempt.
It was a desperate attempt, and I make no apologies for it, because I don't want to regret it. It's done. I'm dusted. I've owned up to it, and it's no longer of significance.
All right. Well, it was so poor. I'm going first this week then.
Yeah, go on then.
Choose a number.
Oh, okay. I'm going to choose for you out of your original 17. I'm going to choose number 4.
I don't even know. I can't even remember why I put this on there. I must have had a particularly good one when I put it on. But number 4 is sandwiches.
Grateful for sandwiches.
Yeah, I love a sandwich.
Yeah,
and actually, I can do no better. Than, and I can't. It may have been after I'd heard this, but I'm not convinced it was. I recently heard a comic writer and comedian called Daniel Kitson talking about making a sandwich. And he described it as it's a little project with a treat at the end of it. And I thought, yes, that is exactly what a sandwich is. The construction of it, deciding what you want to put in it, and then the joy of eating it. And I think I probably put it on my gratitude list on a day I'd had a particularly nice sandwich. And considered the kind of simplicity of something like a sandwich, and reminded myself of how gratitude can often come in very simple ways.
Yeah, they can. And I think what's good about us, and I like, I agree that's quite a good.
What's your favourite sandwich?
A good article. Well, at the moment, I'd say, well, I'm just very simple on that. I just like a cheese and pickle sandwich.
Oh, interesting. Get you.
Yeah, very straightforward. But I like the transportability of a sandwich as well.
Yeah.
You can pack it up. I always remember, do you remember when you're at school and your mum does you a packed lunch when you're going on a trip?
Yeah.
You can't wait to get involved in them, and you end up opening them up on the coach.
Yeah.
And, about 9:30 in the morning, and your lunch is gone.
Yeah. Dairy Lee, I used to have in my packed lunch. I can remember a school trip. I can't remember if we've spoken about this, but I can remember a school trip where I'd open my sandwiches up, and Gary Davis, who was sitting up, not the DJ.
Ooh, Gary Davis.
Yeah, it wasn't the DJ. I was at school with Gary Davis, but not that one. He was up the back of the coach, and he'd eaten his cheese and onion crisps, and he was sick. And it all started running down the aisle of the coach when I was just about to tuck into my Dairy Lee sandwich, and I think it put probably most of us off, to be honest.
It would have a negative effect, wouldn't it?
I still remember that, so I think that was probably a trauma that I've experienced in my life.
That's seared into your memory. I expect you regret sitting next to him.
I wasn't sitting next to him; he was behind me. But the funny thing is, my favourite crisp flavour is cheese and onion. Still.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, that's a nice little trip down memory lane there of school trips when we were young.
Vomit.
But on my list this week, I've put. I went to my first live music gig since lockdown last night. In fact.
Oh, lovely.
Which was nice. It's been a long time
was
coming.
It Brotherhood of Man, was it?
It wasn't Brotherhood. I'm not sure they're still going, mate. But I wouldn't. It was a band called Gin Annie.
Nice.
I'd never heard of them before, and they were playing down in Dover. And in fact, I'd forgotten that I was even supposed to be going. It was a friend of mine had booked up the tickets back in June. And he said, "Do you fancy going to this?" And I must have just said yes and forgotten all about it. And then I suddenly got a message saying, "You still okay for Sunday?" This is like on the Friday. I thought, what the hell is he talking about? And then he rang me and said, "You've forgotten, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, I have." And he said, "Yeah, the other people that were supposed to be coming with us had forgotten as well." But luckily everyone said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, we go." So yeah, it was a trip down to Dover to the place called the Booking Hall, which is right on there where the old, right in the ferry port there.
Nice.
It's a pretty shitty little venue. It's not acoustically brilliant, but it's intimate and it's nice.
Did you get up by the speakers?
No, do you know what? As you get older, you drift back. You think, oh no, that's too loud. My ears would be ringing in the morning.
Were you triggered by the band name?
Sorry, say that again.
Were you triggered by the band name?
Well, do you know, it's strange, wasn't it? Because Gin Annie, which is although gin was never a particular, I was never a big fan of it. To an alcoholic, any alcohol is okay. You can get away with it. So no, I wasn't triggered. But thank you for your thought on that.
Mm. Well, I just wanted to...
Your concern.
I was just wanted to be, making sure. Yeah, I suppose you wouldn't have liked gin because you wouldn't have wanted your vodka adulterated with botanicals, would you, and aromatics?
No, you wouldn't. No, you don't want a juniper berry or whatever they're made from. I don't know what they're made from, but I remember it being a disgusting taste because I used to. I would never have had it with a mixer. It would have been straight out of the bottle, and it would. Yeah, not good, mate. Not good. Anyway, going on to Spotify search.
Yeah,
I could have easily have put "My Way" in there by Frank Sinatra, because no, really, the sentiment is all there. Or indeed the one by the version by Sid Vicious, which I prefer really overall.
Yeah. Of course you do. Yeah.
But anything that springs to mind you regarding regrets or no regrets?
How about Je ne regrette rien?
Exactly, Edith Piaf.
Yeah,
she's on my list. That came up.
Yeah.
That's the second French phrase we've used in this episode.
It is. We're virtually bilingual, aren't we here? I can think of. I'm sure there are other songs with regret in them, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah, there's one that was fairly, well, I suppose at the turn of the millennium, really. No Regrets by Robbie Williams. That's quite a big hit, which I actually quite liked. There's Regret by New Order, which is a great track. One of my favourites from the 80s. But the one I'm going to put on the list, really because it reminds me of my mum. It was one of my mum's favourite songs, which was No Regrets by the Walker Brothers.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
quite a-
There's no.
it's quite a sad
regrets.
song.
I didn't
Yeah,
like the Walker
it's
Brothers,
sad.
but I can understand why you'd put that on there to remind you.
Yeah, yeah. So you can have to indulge me on that one. But
That's
what
fine.
I'm putting that on the list.
I can see Pat listening to that with a fag in her hand and a glass
She
in
would
the
have
other
been.
one.
Yeah, she would have been, and she used to sing it, or she would be. She would be. It was on one of those old reel-to-reel tape recorders.
Yeah.
Which were all the tapes were always breaking and that sort of thing. There's a lot of sellotape on there, and so the tracks would all crackle and hum as that went past the head. But yeah, I remember that song and it had been played a lot.
Nice, well done. Yeah, I preferred them when they got into crisps, the Walkers, to be honest.
Until they got Lineker involved, then it went downhill.
Exactly. All right, good.
All right, mate.
That's it.
That'll
then.
do us then, won't it?
It will. See you next time.
Yeah, we'll do, mate. Good work.
Laters.
Bye.
Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandy-wellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.